Angry Old Hoops here. I want to present my reaction to the DPOY controversy a little bit differently. I do have my thoughts in reaction to Johnny Arnett's video at the end, but I wanted to be different than some of the reaction videos by doing what I do and going and grabbing some of LeBron James's defensive footage and seeing how that stands up to what NBA Advanced Stats claims he's been doing. I will say that I like Johnny's thoroughness. I like that he went and he found the games. I'm trying to get a hold of those games myself now just to double. Not that I don't trust that Johnny watched them thoroughly, but now I would like to see all of it for myself. And I'm also going to be looking for copies of some of LeBron's older games. For now, because I don't have those, we're going to start with recent history. Again, stick around for after the footage segment, and I will have some more thoughts on all of this. Let me show you a few things from Johnny's video to help set the stage for why I broke down the footage that I broke down the way that I did. I have a problem with the games that were selected, mainly because of the dates. When I saw the 6 games, not only was it a small sample size, but I thought, why those games? You know, for a second I thought, oh, okay, so was this consecutive? Did he just like take a period from the season? But no, you can see in a couple of cases that we've got a full month in between the next time that a game is chosen. So my follow-up, or anti video, would be to go and look at all the games during the month in between the ones that Habestroh chose. To me, that means we can't really think that these were random. I mean, look at the first example. We go from November 20th to January 5th. That's more than a month. That's a huge gap. Why those 2 games? Let's go down January 16th to February 15th, another month. February 15th to March 18th, another month. How many games are played in a month? Why are these 6 games selected? So now this starts to support my defensive theory, saying, well, you know what? People make mistakes, and I am teetering on sounding like a LeBron fan, saying, oh, it was someone else's fault. But mistakes do happen. And when you see someone like Habestroh choose games separated by months and sometimes more than a month, then I gotta say, why? Why those games? Were the statisticians too accurate for your liking in the other cases? Did it not fit your clutch sports agenda? We're going to be discussing definitions of rules and also interpretations of those definitions and the problems that this poses to stat keeping throughout the video. For now, let's listen to Johnny talk about the definition of a steal.
Now, what is the definition of a steal is a bit more cut and dry. According to the official NBA rulebook, a steal is credited to a player that legally takes the ball away from an opponent, intercepts a pass, or otherwise obtains possession on the ball following an opponent's turnover, providing the ball has remained in bounds and the clock has not stopped. If a player deflects a pass or dribble and controls his deflection either away from an opponent or towards a teammate, resulting in eventual possession for the defense, the player causing the deflection is credited with the steal.
I agree that the person causing the deflection should be credited with the steal. I've already thought about this from breaking down LeBron James games, because when LeBron James ends up with the ball in his hands after a teammate has caused the deflection, they're crediting him. And what's crazier about it is when you flip it and it's LeBron James causing the deflection and someone else gets possession, they still give it to LeBron James. So the amount of bias happening right now favoring LeBron James is pretty crazy. Now, I want to talk about how this reminds me of rebounding too. I've done multiple videos about LeBron's inflated rebounding stats, And something similar happens there. You know how here we're talking about whether or not it was the guy who deflected it versus the guy who gains possession. Well, with rebounds, the rule says that you have to have intentionally knocked the ball to a teammate for it to count as a rebound. Otherwise it's just loose ball swatting, and it's not a credit to anyone. But when LeBron James knocks the ball around after a shot, they credit him. And again, flip the player scenario. If it is another player who knocks the ball toward LeBron James and LeBron James gets possession, they give the credit of the rebound to LeBron. Now, there are a lot of games with crazy examples, but like I said, I'm going to try to be fair by just starting with recent history and going backward. I thought it would be fun to go and look at the season that LeBron thinks he was robbed of DPOY and look at the footage. Unfortunately, when I went, I saw that the NBA Advanced Stats page does not have the videos available for those plays the way that they do now. I'm going to have to get hold of all of the games in order to provide you with that video. So in the meantime, let's start with recent history. Let's just choose games from this most recent season. Real quick, you guys know that LeBron's rebounds and assists are way blown out of proportion, and that they're not likely to be recording his turnovers correctly either, but that's going to take way too much work to fit into this video, so I'm going to mainly focus on the defensive side. That other video will come in the future. This is April 29th, the final game of the Lakers and the Nuggets. NBA Advanced Stats says that LeBron James had 4 steals in this game, 0 blocks, also says he only had 1 turnover. I find the 0 blocks believable. The 1 turnover I find unbelievable. He also had 1 offensive rebound. LeBron James was credited with 4 steals on this night. That made alarms go off in my head, because that dude is lazy as heck on defense. So this first one is an unusually terrible pass by Jokic. I mean, that's basically throwing the ball to LeBron James, so congratulations on your incredible D there, LeBron. On closer inspection, I'm wondering if Reaves didn't get away with hitting Jokic on the elbow and it not being called, because that pass was really bad. Okay, let's go to steal number 2. All right, what did we just learn? What did we just learn from Johnny Arnett's video and from reading the definitions? It's not who ends up with the ball, it's who deflected the ball to the person who ended up with it. And I warned you guys, they do this all the time. LeBron gets the benefit of the doubt in these situations. I have 3 points to make just on this play. Number 1, LeBron is not the main defender. LeBron is hovering, chilling, waiting for the opportunity to get a rebound after his teammates do the bulk of the work. That's become rather typical. In fact, it is the basis for his inflated rebounds. But this isn't called a rebound. This is actually credited as a steal. Which brings me to point 2. If anyone here is going to be credited with the steal, that would be Reaves, because the rules say it's the person who deflects the ball, not the person who ends up with the ball. But this should be a debate about who should be credited with the rebound. Reaves knocks it to where LeBron can get it. How is this a steal at all? The stat keeping for LeBron is so bad that instead of me debating who should have gotten credit for this rebound, I have to waste time explaining to people that this should be a rebound debate and not a steal. How is this a steal? And because it's LeBron, we also have the bonus of, after his teammates' hard work and him being the recipient, getting that rebound credited as a steal, he turns the ball over. All their hard work out the window. And this is at a crucial point in the game. This is the 4th quarter and LeBron James is turning the ball over. That's the real eye test. Summary thus far: an uncalled foul leads to an easy grab for LeBron James. LeBron James is credited with a steal. on a play that is actually about a loose ball rebounding situation, but he shouldn't have been credited with a steal even if you wanted to call that the steal, nor should he have been credited with the rebound if you want to call it a rebound. Game 1. LeBron James had 1 steal, 1 block. Not the most impressive stats, but what happens if we look more closely? Here's his 1 recorded steal.
To 10 now with Anthony Davis. 16 points, 10 here in the quarter. A steal by James.
I'll zoom in, let you take another look at this. Offensive player loses the ball. James is the lucky recipient of that loose ball. But check this out. Yeah, you lose the ball when the refs allow the other team to grab the player by the hand. My goodness, how do you miss that call? So this results in Jokic not being able to get to the ball, and you know what, if the refs called the foul, that ball isn't just bouncing out there wide open for LeBron to scoop up. I guess my point is all steals are not created equal. It's not like this was some amazing anticipation or quickness that led to this. It was the refs not blowing the whistle and the offensive player losing the ball and LeBron James scooping up a loose ball. But because no other Laker touched it, you can't say that there was a deflection, and therefore this is officially a steal according to the rulebook. Let's look at his block.
That's one way to get on the board. And then a steal by Caldwell Pope in transition on the attack.
I guess it's worth noting that this is even made possible because of LeBron James throwing the ball away here. King turnover himself, but I remember screaming at Caldwell Pope. I'm like, come on, dude, give up the ball. Come on. Or how about a pump fake? Could you do a pump fake or anything that indicates that you understand that the larger defender who has the angle on you is likely going to block your ridiculous shot attempt? All right, so as unimpressed as I am, those are still, according to the rule book, a legitimate block and a legitimate steal. Maybe legitimate isn't the right word because, once again, we have a case of an uncalled foul leading to a LeBron James opportunity. And if you want to praise LeBron James for creating his own opportunities for a chase down block because he's throwing the ball away, that's up to you. This is a good chance for me to remind people that we are looking at playoff games, and we're going to continue to look at playoff games. I don't know how seriously you take the play-in or the in-season tournament, but we're going to look at that too. They can't even get the stats right during playoff games, much less regular season games. So how likely is it that I'm going to find some really egregious stuff if I go hunting for the worst case scenarios when they're doing this in the playoffs? Let's continue backwards to the play-in tournament against the Pelicans. Once again, this was a game that LeBron James recorded 0 offensive rebounds. Of course, we know this is because of his brick and quit technique. Hang out at the perimeter, chuck up a 3, and get back on defense, get your head start because you're an old, worthless man. He'll give you 5 to 8 of those bricks per game. And there's yet another one. And here's my favorite. Brick and blame. Someone tell me what's happening here. Who's he blaming for that? Oh, LeBron, your offense is so bad it makes it into the defensive video. Notable from these stats is this play in particular. And I replayed this multiple times to make sure I wasn't clicking on the wrong thing. This is recorded as a block. I don't know how. He doesn't touch the ball, and the ball goes in. So even if he had touched the ball, that would not meet the definition of a block. So this is an absolute farce of a statistic for LeBron James here. The other thing that I keep thinking about is the difference in these plays. Like, over on the Johnny Arnett video, Michael Jordan is running around all over the place, chasing down the ball, stealing it from behind, just harassing the heck out of people with endless energy. Now we come over to the modern day, you got people flailing in the air and losing the ball, and it ends up in LeBron's hands. You got passes that make me wonder whose team these guys are on, going straight into LeBron's hands. It's just not created equal. If we go back to this first example of Zion spinning around, I think Anthony Davis gets a hand on that. Did he strip him? And again, credit is given to LeBron James. We're supposed to know better than this now. Summary: LeBron James was credited for a block on a play that I can't even wrap my head around. There was no block at all. Then credited for a steal that came as a result of Anthony Davis's defense and likely even Anthony Davis deflecting the ball. Now let's look at the in-season tournament. As meaningless as it was a game that was supposedly significant. So let's check things out. And guess what? I'm getting a lot of this all of a sudden. NBA trying to make it harder for me to verify that LeBron's stats are BS. Anyway, LeBron had 2 steals, 0 blocks, 6 turnovers. You know, there's one thing that's pretty consistent is that he leads the team in turnovers. And it's a big number. Like in the 7 and 6 range. Man, that costs teams dearly. I can count on one hand that is missing fingers how many times a different player on the Lakers led the team in turnovers than LeBron James. Once again, I'm going to have to do the play-by-play in order to find these stats. My God, that floor is ugly. Okay, remember, LeBron had 2 steals. Okay. I can't take that away from him statistically, but what kind of an alley-oop is that? That was like falling 4 feet short. What? This is what makes people say it was rigged. NBA players can't be that bad. You can't be that bad. Just call it a pass to LeBron James. Is this steal 2? Yep. And it's Haliburton again with another unfathomable pass attempt. Unfathomable. I wonder who just got a check from Clutch. Let's talk about the Lakers-Suns play-in. I mean, the in-season tournament. All these ridiculous gimmicks created to help LeBron James are getting confusing. LeBron had 0 blocks. Okay. 5 steals. Well, I'm going to have to take a look at that. Also, 3 offensive rebounds. That also seems odd, for him at least. And only 2 turnovers. That also seems odd. The problem with the turnover thing is that I'm going to have to go back and watch the entire game play by play. So we'll do the turnover BS in a completely different video. If you guys remember, the teams in the play-in tournament didn't seem like they cared or were literally told don't try against the Lakers. It was some of the worst basketball I've ever seen. The Suns had 20 turnovers and the Lakers still barely beat them. And they had to have that controversial BS timeout thing at the end in their favor and 25 trips to the free throw line. But the reason I mentioned 20 turnovers, what are these guys doing? Like, are you throwing it to LeBron James? I can't take those steals away from LeBron's stats, but I can say, look at the eye test. Am I supposed to believe that this is an NBA player making that pass? And we all know that Nurkic is completely worthless, despite whatever fake crap that is at the end, throwing it right to LeBron. 8-2, Kevin. I remember this one. Some say the NBA's always been fake, but the acting at least used to be a little better. This is the second one from Booker that... No, stop it. I mean, come on. Come on. Take a look at that. That's real. That's real. Devin Booker actually thought he was going to fool us with that crap. Devin Booker twice has looked like the guy that shows up to the pickup court and you're like, shit, don't be on my team. That guy is an automatic turnover. Do you actually believe Devin Booker's that bad? Let's go back to Devin Booker's first inexplicable F-up. Look where LeBron James is. This guy over here is responsible for the steal. Regardless of the money that Booker owes the Mafia, Anthony Davis hits that ball. He sends it bouncing right down into the floor. He should be credited with that steal. They gave it to LeBron. It might be petty of me to point out rather questionable passing of today's superior ball players, but what's not petty is pointing out that according to the definition of a steal, this isn't a steal, and it's exactly what Johnny Arnett's video was talking about. They were dissecting whether or not, oh well, but who deflected it and who got possession, and saying, okay, let's take these away from Jordan or give these to Jordan. It's happening now with the benefit of instant replay, with play reviews, with about 1,000 guys working on the stats team, with about 1,000 guys able to review this stuff almost immediately, with super high def, super slow-mo, multiple camera angles. Like within hours of the game, I can look at it and review it. That's not even comparable to the way it was in 1988. November 19th of the Lakers and the Rockets shows LeBron James as having 0 blocks again, not very impressive, and 3 steals. Let's take a look at those 3 steals. And remind me, I'm going to come back and verify that he only had 2 turnovers. Let me also point out something that was a trend for the season. 29 free throws for the Lakers. The other team had 10. 19 more. 19 more. And what do you know? The game came down to free throws. Don't give me this attacking the paint crap either. They shot 29 threes. They shot as many 3-pointers as they had free throw attempts. Anyway, about those 3 steals. Cam Reddish has the offensive player trapped, gets a finger on the pass, and somehow that is not considered. I think Cam Reddish should get some credit there. And once again, it is a defender. It's Cam Reddish again. Cam Reddish actually picks his pocket. Or maybe it's a foul. Maybe he hit him on the elbow there. Either way, Cam Reddish is who caused that pass to go astray, and it ends up in LeBron's hands. Again, the person causing the deflection is supposed to be credited with the steal. And was there ever possession? And LeBron threw the ball away so quickly it's hard to tell if there was even possession. The third credited steal proves my point. LeBron James is the one who pokes the ball away or commits a foul, however you want to see it. Cam Reddish ends up with the ball. LeBron James is credited with the steal. By the same standards, you should have credited Cam Reddish with the previous 2 steals. The correct call, according to the rulebook, is the person causing the deflection gets the steal. In this case, that would mean LeBron James earned 1 of the 3 steals here. The others are Cam's. If we indulge in the excuse game and go back and look at Jordan's, you can say, okay, so did the statistician screw up? Did he not understand? Was it intentional? Is it that he didn't have a good vantage point? Today, you have plenty of time to go back and review. You've got all these different camera angles. Everything's digitized. There's not much room for excuse, especially when you have the chance to correct it after the fact. Summary for that segment: Cam Reddish should certainly have gotten credit for 1 of those, almost certainly have gotten credit for 2 out of 3 of them. Lakers Jazz on November 21st. LeBron James had 0 blocks, 0 steals. LeBron did get 1 offensive rebound. Let's take a look at that. It's another case of the ball being knocked out of his hands and it landing in his hands. So you have to agree with the statistician that that was a shot attempt, and therefore you can consider regaining the ball a rebound. Either way, if that's how you're recording your 1 offensive rebound. Going back and looking at these stats, I noticed some other things, like LeBron does it all in win is the headline that the NBA chooses. Okay, LeBron does it all. According to the NBA, that means shooting 0% from 3, only 63% from the free throw line, having 0 offensive rebounds, having 1 steal, 0 blocks, and having the team high in turnovers of 4. He wasn't even the leading scorer of the team. In fact, he was tied for 3rd. How does LeBron James get the credit for doing it all? There's an astonishing number of these games where his stats are 0 and 0 in the defensive category, or 0 and 1, something along that line. This one's worth noting for multiple reasons. Once again, we have a case of LeBron having only 1 steal and 1 block. And also 5 turnovers, 0 offensive rebounds, and shooting 20% from 3. But what I want to focus on is that this is the steal that was recorded. That is not a steal. I remember distinctly that in Johnny Arnett's video, there was a lot of talk about you had to maintain possession. You couldn't just knock it out of bounds in order for it to be counted as a steal. Well, then how is this a steal? That's a deflection at best? Knocked out of bounds? Nobody gains possession at the end of it. How can it be a steal? It says right here, Johnny provided his definition, and I went back and I'm showing you what it currently says. Provided the ball stays in bounds. This is incorrect. Even the one measly steal shouldn't count. So what about the block? Well, as is so often the case, it's a chase down, which means that LeBron is getting to provide help defense when somebody else is distracting the offensive player. But what you really should pay attention to is that this chase down is only possible thanks to LeBron James's turnover. At least he tried. Usually he quits after he screws up. This quote-unquote steal against Miami is worth looking at for several reasons. That's D'Lo coming over with the trap, and D'Lo gets a hand on the ball, and D'Lo even ends up with the ball, then gives it up to LeBron James, who of course has no shame in just taking the ball for the easy stat padding bucket. But look at D'Lo. Come over. D'Lo's got a hand on the ball. LeBron gets a hand on the ball too, but bottom line is they chose to give LeBron James credit for that steal. LeBron James doesn't have the decency of recognizing the hard work that D'Lo put in. D'Lo's out and running first, has the ball, says, okay, here, I know you want a stat pad, go ahead. LeBron James doesn't even think twice. He's like, yeah, I am going to stat pad. And this was when D'Lo was in full D-sucking mode, and it still didn't help him. LeBron threw him under the bus the second he had a chance. Just in case people are going to be mad that I left this out, let me go over really quick the screen, the running over the screener. You do have a legal obligation to go around a legally set screen, so either call Bam for an illegal screen or call LeBron James for the foul running over the screener. Instead, none of it is called. LeBron James is credited with a steal and given more easy layup points. Really quick, because I know the mentality of LeBron people. You're saying, oh, leave him alone, he's 39. No, I'm not going to leave him alone because he's 39 when Rich Paul is trying to influence voters to consider LeBron James as an MVP, even disrespecting Anthony Davis, who actually deserved consideration, when LeBron James is undeservedly named to All-NBA third team. No. As long as that crap's going on, I'm going to show you the reality of what's happening while that crap is going on. Here's another example of LeBron James being credited with a steal. It's actually Reddish's tenacious defense that leads to this, but more importantly, there's never possession. Again, the rules say possession must be gained, otherwise it's not a steal. Tell me, please, tell me who had possession during that sequence. And also, there's always so much more to see with LeBron James plays. Look at him. He actually throws his hands up in the air complaining as his teammate didn't get the ball that he dove out of bounds for to the right place. Leave it to LeBron. Instead of commending the teammate, actually complain that the guy flying out of bounds, throwing the ball backwards behind him, didn't get the ball right where he wanted it to go. In any case, the Lakers did not gain possession. If no possession was gained, it cannot be considered a steal. Erase that one from the stat books. Again, these are the rules as outlined in the Johnny Arnett video, and I confirmed myself. Let me show another play from that Pacers game that helps me explain why defense is much more than just stats. Because watch what LeBron does here. You're on defense right now, buddy. You're committing an offensive foul, in my opinion, but you're immediately complaining to the ref right in your line of sight, no technical, but what LeBron isn't doing is getting back on defense. Hey, you turned the ball over, you don't like the call, I guess that means it's your right to quit. He's not going to help. He's not on defense. Ladies and gentlemen, That type of stuff isn't shown in the stats, and it matters. There's another reason that it matters. Is that shooting motion? You'll understand why I'm asking that in a moment. Just tell me, is that shooting motion? Allow me to share some concerns that I have about interpretation of the rules, because if it is open to interpretation, then we're going to have some problems when something is a block, a deflection, or a steal, and assists also. You guys have seen my channel. You've seen that I go into what LeBron James does, and I go into the NBA advanced stats after the game, and I look at what they've credited him with, and then I go and I'm like, And you know when it gets really complicated is the act of shooting. They will say these guys are in the act of shooting so early, that if somebody, okay, let's say that LeBron is in step one of his 5 steps going to the layup. Now a ref might say, oh, it's the act of shooting because it's going to be a layup. If somebody strips the ball at the beginning of LeBron James's journey, traveling with the ball, is that a block shot? Because it's the act of shooting. Is it a steal? I mean, it seems to me that it would be a steal because he is not in fact shooting yet. He's swinging elbows left and right on his way before he then goes into the act of shooting. But these guys are starting to say, hey, as long as you've picked the ball up and are in a charging motion, it's part of the act of shooting. So you see my concern? The Johnny Arnett video spent some time talking about interpretation of a block. Sometimes what you might consider to be a block isn't considered a block on the stat sheet. Or maybe what you think wouldn't be a block is considered a block on the stat sheet. And sometimes a deflection or a contested shot or a block or a steal got mixed up. But I'm saying that's even worse if LeBron James gets to come swinging his elbows through, and we're going to call that the act of shooting because that's supposedly a layup. If the refs had called a foul here instead of saying that he lost the ball or that it was, I guess, stripped because this isn't a block, this is a steal. Or was it? I'm less concerned about whether the defender was credited with a block or a steal with whether or not we truly believe this is shooting motion. LeBron James has the ball in his hands while he's swinging his arms at people. This also becomes an issue with the offensive rebounds. In some of those games where he had one offensive rebound, it was a situation like this. I showed a different example in the earlier clips, but look at this one. Is that really the act of shooting? Because they said that this is an offensive rebound, which means we have to believe that that was a shot attempt right there and that this is a block. This one's easier to accept as a blocked shot at that point. The problem is, what about that first part where he throws his arms up at the defenders? Is that also a shot attempt? And then this one is also a shot attempt. So he had 2 shot attempts, or it's all the act of shooting. The problem is that first one, I would think that you'd call that a steal if it's deflected then. This one I can kind of buy that you would call it a blocked shot. Even though in LeBron's case, he's really still just swinging his arms around like a barbarian. He said something else in the video at the beginning that shows that we are at least somewhat like-minded. He's like, you know, it's not good when some fans hear something that supports their current state of mind and run with it without verifying it for themselves. And LeBron fans, I think, are very guilty of that. Do you think any of them cared what the evidence was when Habestroh came out with that story? And Johnny also says, you know, Jordan fans are probably likely to defend Jordan. Difference is, Jordan fans watched Jordan. They remember seeing Jordan's competitiveness. They remember seeing his defense. They remember seeing his hustle. So when people today decide to try and crap on someone from back then, an alarm should go off in your head. You're like, wait a minute, what is this all about? We saw a competitor. Now, today we're watching LeBron James. And I'm not looking back on LeBron James's career and trying to figure out why he shouldn't be considered as great as he is. I'm watching it in real time, and I know with the visual evidence that it's not as great as it is. So it's different. You guys weren't inspired by watching, you LeBron fans weren't inspired by watching Michael Jordan and thinking, oh, he's not actually very good. That's not how you think. You're realizing LeBron James has so many flaws that your best chance is to go back and try and say that this person that people actually do respect wasn't actually that good. I'm not saying that that's what Johnny's doing. So this isn't about ripping on Johnny. When that Habestroh story came out, I thought, what would be weirder? For people to go back in time or dig up stuff from the past and be able to find that people didn't always keep correct stats, or to find that stats were always recorded correctly. Think about that. It sounds like I'm making excuses. I'm like, well, of course there were mistakes. I get it. I accept that criticism, but that's not my point. Think about it for a minute. What are the odds that stats weren't ever recorded incorrectly? Whether it was home court bias, whether it was different interpretation of the rules. You know, when we have a hard time deciding whether something's a steal, a deflection, or a block based on NBA definitions, then I reckon a statistician might record something incorrectly from time to time. Again, here comes the LeBron argument. Oh, well then that applies for LeBron. How do you criticize his stats? How do you know it's not an accident? Here's the difference. When I looked at Johnny's video and we were debating whether or not Jordan should be credited with this or this or this or nothing, he was hustling his ass off in all of those and playing defense in all of those. The plays that I've looked at where LeBron has been credited with things, I'm like, what? How? I mean, there's a big difference. There are things that just don't make sense, and there are things you're like, okay, I guess I can understand why there might have been some confusion there. Johnny said something in the beginning-ish part of the video that I kind of agree with. I don't know if he meant what I'm going to say, but it made me think of this. I've been thinking about Jordan's career and wondering if how close he was to perfection wasn't actually a problem. Like, the opposition of Jordan think that they've really accomplished something if they ever prove that Jordan wasn't perfect. I never thought Jordan was perfect. I don't think Jordan ever thought Jordan was perfect, but his career was so great that now people are like, but this happened and this happened. Yeah, it did. And I wonder if they could find Jordan's stats skewed during the playoffs, because you would think people would have a more watchful eye when it comes to playoff games. But with that in mind, with LeBron James, I thought, hey, how do I supposedly randomly select games? Well, what if I just start with the most recent history and work backward? I have another funny story regarding Johnny Arnett's research. I also discovered USA Sports on DVD back when I was making the LeBron versus Jordan at age 38 against Charlotte video. I wanted the entire game. I didn't want just highlights. So I went on a search, and it ultimately led me to this website. I'm going to wrap this one up. As I've already mentioned, doing LeBron's assists, his rebounds, his turnovers, going back and seeing how many travels he didn't get called for, all of those things would be easier pickings than trying to dig into his steals versus blocks. But I wanted to start with this since it was topical. Those other videos are coming. I do want to ask you guys if there are some games from LeBron's past that you want to cherry pick, because I'm sorry, it's not like Tom Habestroh cherry picked any games or anything. But if you guys want to provide suggestions, if there are any games that you in particular think I should take a look at the footage of, by all means, suggest them. If you have access to those games, even better. I hope you enjoyed this long form video, and I'll catch you in the next one.